Welcome, dart players one and all. Today on Straight to the Point, we're going to be taking a quick look at the questions you've sent in. I did say I'd do a Q&A video quite a while ago. I'm sorry, I'm so busy at the minute. I think everyone in dart is. But we're finally doing it. And then next video I release will be on alignment with a professional I haven't put on the YouTube channel yet. But okay, a lot of these questions are very similar. So if they're about alignment, I'll touch upon them today, but I'm not going to answer every single question on alignment because they are the same, just worded slightly different. And then when I make the video on alignment anyway, you should have a full picture of everything you're going to need to know. So keep an eye out for that one as well. I'm going to get it done as soon as I can. I got a trip to America at the end of April, which should give me a little bit of time. I'm going to try to edit it when I'm on the plane and stuff. I'm traveling for a good few hours. So I should be able to do something in that time, you know? Okay. Rightio. So first question we've got is about the back foot placement with alignment. Now, I'm a firm believer that the feet really don't make a massive amount of difference. Not like everyone makes out. As long as you've got a stable balance, you know, you're well balanced and you're comfortable, that's really what matters. It's more about where the chest is pointing. The chest is the most underrated part of the throw. If your chest is pointing in the same direction, your elbow and biceps down the same path, you're going to end up drawing back to the same spot every time, whilst getting the same sort of results. The problem is people wake up the next day, they draw back to the same spot, and it feels totally different, or it just doesn't work the same. Probably their chest has moved. So in terms of the feet, I would find the alignment with the bicep, the elbow, and the chest. Then position the feet however you feel most comfortable around that. Because if you're too side on, you're going to have to twist your waist a little bit more sometimes. Some people can twist their waist all day. I do it. My feet are always very side on, and my chest is more to the board these days. It doesn't bother me. Some people are going to get back problems with it. They're not going to like it. I'm obviously going to tell them to go a little bit more side on. And with the back foot, generally, as a general rule, the more your chest is pointing to the dartboard, the more the back foot comes around to keep you comfortable. You don't have to do it if you're comfortable with it behind you, but that's generally what you're going to find. But focus more on your chest, not so much on your feet. Chest, elbow, and bicep. Keep a listen out for that alignment video. It will make more sense, I promise you. Okay, is it okay for a rear gripper to use a front-loaded dart? This question's been asked quite a few times as well, or similar, in terms of balance. Of course it is. You look at Nathan Aspinall, very front-heavy dart, always right at the back. What you'll find is the dart kicks more. So it depends really on how much you're kicking the point up. When you hold right at the back of the dart, most players are going to weight the back of the dart down a little bit. So as they start to release, it'll pull it down just a touch. And a lot of players do this on purpose, so that they get the point right up in the air at the point of release. Just like that. Then as the air hits the flight, it'll start to lift. And this is the weight shift. As soon as it becomes too front heavy, it'll kick down. As it kicks down, the weight shifts and actually lifts up. The dart jumps about a couple of inches. It actually speeds up. A little bit like watching side spin in snooker or pool. You put side spin on the ball, it's spinning down the cloth. As soon as it hits the cush, it speeds up. It's the same sort of thing. As it starts to shift, it speeds up, which means you can get a lot more height on the dart without having to lift your arm so much or throw so hard. Luke Littler, genius at it. You watch Luke Littler when he hits stops, his arm's there. It's nowhere near up there, and he's short, you know, he's only a little dud. But he can kick that dart so well that he gets the dart sitting upright, right in the centre of the double top, firm, aggressive, by just kicking it. The more weight you have at the front, or the longer the barrel, so the more mass there is past the point of balance where you're actually holding the dart. So if I'm wherever you're making contact, effectively, if I'm making contact here, the more mass I have by here, or the more weight I have by here, the easier it is to achieve this kick, because you're still pulling down the same at the rear, but then there's more weight to shift it. So it will play different. But you look, lots of players do it. Even if you look at Andy Fordham, tiny little dart, all the weight was at the front, and he held the shaft. Well, there's no weight in the shaft, it's about a gram. So it's still very front heavy. And you watch the way the dart used to fly. Very similar to how Aspinall does it today, and Luke Littler. Same things you see back then. Leighton Rees, similar, but I think he used to flick the point. It's a different way of doing it. Rather than pulling the back down, you lifted the point up. Same thing you're doing, different way of doing it. Much harder to learn that way. I wouldn't recommend learning to flick the point. You watch like Mardle, just to really flick that point up, hold the front, kick the point up to create the angle. Yeah, he's very gifted. He's very naturally talented. You might say he's not, but he is. He was good when he was in the youth. He was your youth champion, 1988, something like that. His dad was a great dart player. His dad hit a 9 when he was like 70 or something. It's in the genes. The guy can throw a dart. Most players that flick the point are normally more naturally gifted. It's not something you learn. Okay, so this was a video, Masterclass 6, handprint and straight release. Great video. I was wondering what I should do if I do this and then I end up hitting high fives. Do I try to change the hand position or the follow through? That's a very good question. Okay, so we need to assess why a player's hitting 5. Now, lots of players have asked about hitting 5s. Alright, so I'm going to deal with this all at once. 5s are a nightmare for right-handed players. 1s for left-handed players, normally. That's statistically the bigger miss. Whenever a player's hitting 5, it's usually because of 3 different things. 1, they might be turning the dart on the draw so that the point is facing this way, not facing to the target. Now, it's okay to do this. You'll see lots of players, like Kyle Anderson used to hold the dart like this. I've taught people to do this as well. It's something that some people are very good at. If you're very good at throwing like that, why would I tell you to do something else? Makes no sense. The basic physics to getting the dart straight can still apply. Yeah? But as you start to lift the back of the hand, you want to slightly rotate. So when you draw back, you're drawing back, and you want to lift the back of the hand and the thumb until it goes back to where you were aiming. Then as you flick, you're keeping it straight. If you do that, you should be fine. If you're letting the dart go a bit sideways, like that, the air is going to hit the flight and it's going to push the dart over to the 5s and high in the 5s. And the fact he said high 5s makes me think maybe he's doing that a little bit. Okay, maybe he's letting the dart go a little bit sideways. Now, you can also get the dart to fly sideways if the grip is uneven. And the fact he's been playing with his hand shape tells me he may have changed the grip a little bit. There's a probability of that happening. There can be a domino effect. You try to fix one thing and something else goes wrong. It doesn't mean what you're doing isn't productive. But yeah, grip pressure, I've spoken about on the channel before. Majority of players, that should be 99% of your grip. Index finger and thumb. Everything else is very light on the barrel. If your point is going this way and then you're pushing it straight, for example, as you let it go, it's going to kick this way as it leaves your hand. And again, the air will hit the flight and still push it over to the 5s. And more advanced, you do get some players, and I tell them to do this, they take the finger off and they, oh, see, it's still straight. But actually, they're just gripping it really tight, and as they loosen it, it goes over there again. If I go as loose as I can, if I grip it as well as I can, and go as loose as I can, this dart shouldn't be doing this. Yeah? Like it does in my right hand, because I haven't thrown with my right hand for years. Yeah, but if I do it with my left, I've actually trained myself to feel for this grip, and as I go softer and softer, the point goes straight down. The grip is even. So when I'm gripping it, it's sitting even in the hand. Then as I go forward, the dart flies nice and straight. Learned that off an aerospace engineer, Ori. If you're listening, you're a genius, mate. I learned of a few different people from different industries. Aerospace engineering is a good one to learn off when you're trying to learn about darts. Ballistics is another one I've learned off as well. Didn't get as much out of that one, but still the same basic physics. And then study other sports. Every sport with a follow-through's got the same principles to it. The same principle. It's all about timing, follow-through. The common denominator with all follow-throughs is that acceleration. Doesn't matter if you're boxing or if you're playing golf, pool, snooker. Same thing. Basketball even. You still see the same principles. I'm cross-eye dominant and struggling with consistency. Again, really, really common question. I've had this one loads and loads and loads of times. Always remember, firstly, eye dominancy is a spectrum. Okay, the more I've looked into this and the more I've studied it, I've coached thousands and thousands and thousands of players since I made eye dominancy videos. You know, I knew about eye dominancy. I understood it. But I didn't have anywhere near the statistical data I have on it now. Which is why I'm a much better darts coach. I wasn't full-time back then. You know, I've got better. So eye dominancy is a spectrum. It is a complete spectrum. You're going to get some people who are very right eye dominant, some people who are very left eye dominant, and they're going to be each side of the spectrum. You get very rare occasions where people are equal eye dominance. Yeah, but it's mainly the in-between that you're going to see. So if you do an eye dominancy test, it might say you're right eye dominant. It doesn't mean you're that much of right eye dominant. You could be there. Center of my screen is equal. You might just be there. Now, the way to tell this is to see how far the target is away from your vision, or blindfold yourself on your dominant eye. That's what I used to do. So I used to blindfold my dominant eye, and I'd throw with my left. So when I switched hands, I became opposite eye dominant. Made it even harder to switch hands. But when I'd blindfold myself, I was playing good darts. It would feel like I was hitting treble 20s, and I'd hit treble 14s and treble 11s. And I'd put 3 in the treble 14, and it'd feel like a 180. Now if I do it, I hit treble 12. Because over the last 6 years, my eye dominancy has started to make less difference. Eye dominancy can change on the spectrum. The better your hand-eye coordination becomes, the less it affects you. You look at Connor Scott. Connor Scott used to draw the dot over here. Play him more, now he draws to here. It's not as far. You look at Taylor. Taylor's another good example, yeah? So Taylor used to keep his elbow in slightly, pointing to the left, which is very uncommon with left eye dominant players. But very slightly left, he'd stand in the centre of the hockey, draw back to the centre of his face. Now he's not playing as much on the seniors. His eye dominancy is going further to the left, like it would have been when he first started playing. It's his natural hand-eye coordination that's coming back rather than what he's trained. And now you can see him going further to the left, bigger angle on his forearm, and the elbow's out a lot further, which means he has to stand to the left. And this is my point with it, okay? I am going somewhere with this, trust me. People with different eye dominance will have statistical trends. And it's good to know those trends when you're trying to work on your own game. Right eye dominant players tend to want to point their elbow to the left, in like this. Yeah? Opposite eye dominant players, left eye dominant, tend to want to kick their elbow out more, which means they're better to the left. So when a player first starts playing, like the first ever YouTube video I put up, you know, put the line down the centre of the hockey, stand in the centre. That's what I learned off Bob Anderson, and there was another pro as well that told me the same sort of thing. Taylor used to do it that way when he was training at his best. And if you're working with an absolute beginner who doesn't know where to stand, that is where I put them. Make the board as symmetrical as you can. Something John Lowe used to say. Keep all the targets symmetrical. But, again, as John Lowe went older, he moved to the right. His eye dominancy played a part. He was always opposite eye dominant, but he had the quirk of keeping the elbow in slightly. He's in the small percentage of players that do that. But we want to work with your trends. The secret is, with the going back to alignment, keep the elbow and bicep on the same path you want the dart to fly. Now, the further you stand to the right of the hockey, the more the elbow's going to have to point into the left. You think of Luke Littler, Raymond van Barneveld, Danny Noppert, Ryan Searle, Michael Smith, Stephen Bunting, all to the left, and their elbow always points in. All to the right of the hockey, and the elbow points left. And get myself confused. Stand over here, point the elbow in, which means that the elbow and biceps still pointing down the centre of the hockey, just at an angle. So if you're a beginner, try to keep it like this, straight up and down. But as your eye dominancy takes effect, if you feel your elbow coming in, well, all of a sudden, if you extend your arm, you're going into the 19s and the 5s. So to hit a 20, you have to twist and turn. You're better off just coming over to the right and going straight down the line. It's still straight. Left eye dominant, the elbow tends to want to kick out for most players more. Yeah? Stick to the left. Keep the same angle on your arm. Start finding the centre of the screen, centre of the dartboard. Statistical trends. So with your eye dominance, I would listen to what your body wants to do. Yeah? Where does your elbow and bicep naturally want to point? If it wants to point out, stick to the left. If it wants to point in, stick to the right. And vice versa. If you're going to keep a bigger angle on your forearm, which is common with left eye dominant players, keep the same angle. Don't try to straighten the arm up as you go through, because you're going to move the elbow sideways. And as soon as you bring it in too much too fast, the hand's going to twist. As a professional, I used to coach Louis Williams, and he was always thrown with a bigger angle on his arm. Then all of a sudden he started bringing his elbow in, and his average dropped to like 70 before he contacted me. By the time I'd seen his throw, he was doing this. And I used to play with Louis once or twice, you know, when he was playing like Super League and county and stuff when he was a kid. He's a little bit younger than me. I would have been around 21, I think, 21, 22. I think he was about 18, something like that, I think. He seemed about that age at the time. He was very good back then, but his throw didn't look like that. You know? He's not reading. He stopped playing well. You need to be keeping the same angle. Keep the elbow still. That's the best way to get consistent. Just started. How do I see the target when aiming? My hand's in the way. Thanks, subbed. Thank you for subbing. That's very kind of you, mate. You need to lower your elbow. You're following advice that's generically thrown around on keeping your elbow high. I promise you, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. You know, you see Wayne Mardell was keep your elbow up here, and then you watch him play and his elbow's down there. You look at Michael Smith's elbow, it's down there. You look at Van Gerwen's elbow, it's down there. Taylor's elbow is a little bit higher because he's a bit shorter, but it's still not level with the shoulder. It's still slightly down. Most players are going to have the elbow lower than the shoulder. Yeah, make sure you can see over the dart the whole time. Lower it down, back with the wrist, lift the wrist and let it go. Flick and fall. Keep the elbow as still as you can till after the point of release. After the point of release, it's normal to lift for most players. But everyone's height's different. The shorter the player, the higher the elbow's going to need to be. Now, I have to take that into account. If you are particularly short, yeah, under 5'7", 5'8", yeah, under 5'7", really, then you might need the elbow level with the shoulder. Yeah, in some cases. Then I would try to tilt the dart. So rather than aiming it flat, try to tilt it. And if you are about 5'7", you should still be able to see over the target. If you can't, drop it down a tiny, tiny bit. And with the dart at this angle, it will really help you see the target a bit better. Go with that. My darts go in the board and lean to the right. It's so frustrating. I've had someone else write in saying the darts lean at an angle as well. Okay. If you're standing to the left or standing to the right and throw them straight, then the darts are going to go in at an angle because you're throwing them straight. If that frustrates you, a shorter point that's more aggressive can straighten the dart up as it hits the board, so it's more visually pleasing to you. But there's actually nothing wrong with it. If you're standing more central, you're not too extreme to the right, and the dart's landing at quite an extreme angle, it's your grip. 100% that goes back to the pressure of the grip. You're kicking the dart side to side. The dart's leaving your hand at an angle, so as the air hits the fight, it will try to straighten it, but it's going too far the other way. Go back and look at the grip pressure. Look at the video I made with Jules Van Dongen and go back to the section I made at the start on grip pressure as well. That's what you need to be doing. Does the US have a place that does darts fitting? Do you know what? I don't know, but I do have plans with a darts app I'm developing. And that should be better than a darts fitting. I mean, I've got an idea in my head. It's only an idea at this point. There are investors behind it. But the main part of the app is going to be to generate feedback on throwing. Yeah. So rather than me making you a video, you upload your videos, upload all the relevant clips, and it'll just generate it. Bang, done. It's going to be amazing if I can get it to work. And they seem to be confident it is working. I'm not smart enough to develop technology like that. You know, I'm a darts coach, not an IT boffin, but they're confident that it's working. They have done it in baseball and basketball and sold it to very, very big companies in the past. So, yeah, I am working on something like that. But as part of it, they will give suggestions on equipment. That again will be AI generated. It's all based on facts and statistical analysis rather than opinion, which I think is what I try to work on. It's very hard to work on those principles, but that is what I build my coaching on. I'm very, very keen to go with statistical probabilities. If I see an algorithm, I'm coaching it. If I can see 27 of the top 32 players in the world doing something in common, I'm going to want my students to give it a go. At least give it a go. Yeah. But I would also like, rather than just sending you equipment, giving you suggestions, and you pay more for it, what if, as part of the subscription, I could send out equipment, and you just pay a deposit, and if you don't like it, you just send it back and get your deposit back. That would be so much better. I am looking at these things. There's something called darts in a bottle in the UK that's very small, quite niche, but they're onto something with it, you know? And they just post it through the door. The big man Andy Fordham was a great dart player, RIP. Correct. 100%. Definitely one of the most underrated players, I'd say. What do you recommend for helping counting? Do you know, the best thing you can do to learn your counting is to learn to score right to left. I did make a video on it. I'll probably have to make another one, because it was very hard to explain. I'd never explained it before. I don't think that video went too well, if I'm honest. I've taught people to count. When I was less busy, I would try to do some work for free for charity purposes. And one thing I used to do is have X amount of students do counting sessions. And there was one guy I really liked. I had to stop contact with him for a while because he's a little bit obsessive. So I think he needed a break from the darts coaching. But Jed, if you're out there, I still think he's a nice guy, really nice guy. He couldn't count at all. I tried to get him to count back from 9 and he couldn't count. But I taught him to count left to right to left. And then I told him, I want you to sit down every day, keep doing this same pattern and watch old games from the 80s and 70s. Because in the 80s and 70s, the scores didn't change every throw. They would change every other visit. So you can hear what the call is, what they've hit, and just do it. Write it down. Wait for it to come up. And at the end of the leg, when they show the scores, if you got the right answer, you're doing it right. I would start with that. And if you keep writing it down, eventually you'll start just doing that in your head. You won't need the pen anymore. It makes a big, big difference. Then when you go for like 61, treble 15, double 8, you learn those shots like phone numbers. You just practice 60 to 70 every day. Yeah, and learn one shot for all of them. When you remember them, then you do one shot for 80 to 90. When you remember them, 90 to 100. You remember them like phone numbers. You just keep throwing at them, and it slowly starts to sink in. But when you hit a 2, you'll automatically have that whiteboard in your head. And you'll know, okay, so I was on 61. Taking away one from a 2 is always a 9. 59. Sit 19 in tops. You have the whiteboard in your head, I promise you, but you need to learn right to left on scoring firstly. It starts with a whiteboard. That's the most important thing. A friend of mine is asking for advice on how to pick up the dart correctly. He's not sure if you should pick up the dart only with the thrusters or I have 3. Okay. Yes. That's a good question. Now, some players do this differently. Some people just pick it up with these fingers and then add the others on very gentle. If it works, it works. But I would always recommend just trying to feel for the same grip. Hold all 3 darts exactly the same in your non-throwing hand. Pick up the dart. Check if it feels good and the pressure is good. Put the dart back down and think about how it's leaving your hand. And then reverse it. And just practice picking it up over and over again when you're not throwing. So when you come to the board, you know how it feels. You just remember that feeling of lifting the dart up. You can't be thinking about picking the dart up when you play. It's far too difficult to do that under pressure. You need to do it off feeling. So when you've learned to pick the dart up with feel, and once you've learned to pick the dart up with feel like this, then you might make adjustments on your drawback. That's up to you to feel that the adjustment's the same every time, and that the pressure's still good at the end of the drawback. The amount of people as you do this test and then they change the grip on the draw, well, that's not going to work, obviously. It's the grip by here that really matters. Yeah? That's the grip you need to get right. If you're struggling with it though, try not to do anything fancy on your draw. Just pick it up the same, back with the fingers and the wrist. Pull the thumb back, and put it back straight, or just use your wrist. Do as little as possible on the draw. Build the momentum. That's what the drawback's for. But I would start just by pick the dart up, put it down, pick the dart up, put it down. Think about how it feels leaving your hand. Reverse it. I would like to know properly how to flick the darts like the pros do. Yeah, I've done a video on that. I said push down on the back or flick the point up. There is a video with me and Kieran. It is masterclass. If you go onto my YouTube channel and go onto my playlists, there is a playlist that is just masterclass videos. And it is masterclass 4. Creating good markers to hit more 180s. Give that one a watch. Okay, so I'm new to Swiss points. Obviously longer points adds weight to the front of the dart, and I don't feel comfortable with the 40mm. And the flight sometimes points to the floor. I'm not sure if it's my throw or release. For me, the sweet spot is 30mm. I feel like it makes the dart feel a bit more stable. Yeah, I agree with that. Shorter point generally is more stable. But if you're good with a longer point, hey ho. You know, go with what works for you. Okay, rightio. So with the dart actually landing downward like this, you're probably a front gripper, and it is the way that you're releasing the dart. If you're holding the front to middle of the barrel, you're probably releasing it relatively flat. The only way you'll get the point to kick then is to flick the point up, which again is very hard to learn. So you'd either have the option of holding right on the back, maybe slightly on the shaft, and learning to kick the dart, and that will get the dart to sit upright, because it is technique, not equipment. Equipment can make a bit of difference. It's mostly technique. Yeah? Mostly technique. But if they're going in, you're hitting 180s with the darts down, go with it. It's just a yin to the yang. You know, Taylor used to do it that way. Keen Barry does it that way. But they also use a small flight, and they try to hit the bottom of the treble or just below. So if they land low, they can land on top of the dart. If your darts are kicking up, the advantage of having the dart up in the board means that if you miss high, you can hit the barrel and bounce in. If you land them down, you want to land on top. Try a smaller flight and embrace the angle. Try to miss low and just land on top. If you're hitting more 180s with it and you're scoring better, do it. Loads of players do it like that. It's a yin to a yang. I wouldn't say one's better than the other. One is more common than the other. It's more common to have the darts up. But Taylor's the greatest player of all time. He did it the other way. So you can't say it's wrong. It's definitely does something, doesn't it? Okay. What are some techniques and equipment changes to get the darts to hit the board at a proper angle? Again, I refer back to my previous answer. It's technique. It's really not. In general, the shorter the stem and the bigger the flight, the easier it is to get that dart to kick. And again, the more front heavy or longer the barrel, when you're holding the shaft slightly, the easier it is to get the dart to hit at that upright angle. If you're a soft tip player and you're referring to the dart being flat, then usually a smaller flight or a longer stem. But it really doesn't make that much difference, if I'm honest. I don't like the darts landing flat. You look at the majority of players in the top 16 in the world, they all have the dart pointing up. Or flat with a smaller flight. So why wouldn't you go with it? You know? Do professional dart players do exercises for their hands, wrist and fingers? No, generally. But yes, if they have a problem. And so it's not a bad idea to start doing it. I have to do it. I have to do some stretches. Basic. Push against it. Turn my hand back. Push away. Basic stretches. Nothing too fancy. I also like this, courtesy of one of my students. A lacrosse ball. First time I've ever seen a lacrosse ball in the UK. Do not play lacrosse here at all. But just keeping this on a flat surface and rolling my palm of my hand on it. And straight down. It does loosen the arm up. So I use this quite a lot, especially since I've had the arthritis. It does help with the tendons. Keeps the hand nice and loose. Also, deep heat. I love deep heat. Deep heat really helps. Especially if you're playing in winter and it gets cold. And sometimes if you get problems with your joints, it's really painful in cold environments. And deep heat's just a chemical. Stick it on your hand, it goes really warm. Every country's got their own variant of it. Yeah, but that's quite useful as well. Okay, so this is a good question. How do you know the right amount of force to put on the dart? Throwing a bit lighter feels natural to me, but throwing a bit harder adds it helps me with my grouping. That's a really good question. I would always imagine keeping your arm as soft as you possibly can, because it's about timing, not force. You need to accelerate through. So we want the wrist and the fingers getting gradually quicker, nice and fast with the wrist and fingers. But if you push too much with your arm, your wrist and fingers don't have time to work. It ends up just doing this. And then you start lifting up through. Use your wrist and your fingers. Keep this as soft as you can, as quick as you can with your wrist and your fingers. And if you're going as quick as you can with your wrist and your fingers and the dart's still dropping a little bit low, then experiment with different weights. The slower the wrist and the fingers, generally a heavier dart helps get the height, and vice versa. With the exception of when you're kicking the dart. Then it can take a bit more experimenting due to the weight shift. It's a lot to do with the balance of the dart. That can take a bit of playing about with. Please, is slow motion how you grab the dart and get it and the wrist open or closed position? Okay, so how I set up picking the dart up every time. And so never Connor Scott was it how and when you turn, rotate the wrist. Example for Connor Scott. Okay, I think I know what you mean. So you want an example of Connor Scott's hand going through and his alignment, as well as my setup. Yeah, I can do that. Okay, I'll put them on now. Yep, so this is Connor. So if you look at Connor's grip, it's in between open and closed. It's slightly more closed, if anything, side of the little fingers to the dartboard. And when he goes through, he keeps this shape quite beautifully, like a little C shape. If we go really slow and pause on it, just there. So you can see the gap between the index finger and thumb. Straight down the line. So you've got that gap, the eye and the dart all down one line together. That's why he's so straight. Now, Connor does have a little bit of a bad habit after he lets it go, but it's so far after the point of release, it doesn't make a difference. By here, where he starts to turn the palm of the hand to the ground, that's not a good habit to have, but as long as it's that far after the point of release, you're going to be fine. Tony O'Shea used to do it as well. But if you're doing that and you're hitting ones, you're rotating on the release slightly. And if you do rotate slightly on the release, you're going to spin the dart off to the right. Hand turns left, dart misses right. It's always the other way around than people think. And if you look at it with myself, very much the same. Elbow still, same angle on the forearm, slightly closed grip, so I keep that gap between the index finger and the thumb down the path. Eye, dart, gap between the index finger and the thumb, one line together. That's what you're trying to do. Keep it all down one path together and hold your handprint. Now sometimes I turn after release, but it's a terrible habit. But I've only just changed my grip to be more closed. I used to have an open grip. So I'm still learning a little bit. It's only been 6 months since the change. I am not sure on what weight I should use. I am currently using 22-gram darts, and on the pull back, my hand shakes. It feels like the dart is too light, and I'm not sure what weight to go for. Well, the hand shaking isn't really relative to the weight. They're two different problems there. Someone's replied to this one. So look. He says in another one of his videos that if you're a bit... Yeah, someone actually watches my stuff. Well done. Dynamo Dave. Not Dynamite Dave. Dynamo Dave. Yeah. And he is spot on, yeah. Just like I said, heavier the dart, the slower the wrist and the fingers can travel. It's really not relative to the handshake. With the handshake, the easiest fix is alcohol, but it's not the healthiest one. Try to work on your mindset with it. Now, I like to do a little bit of subliminal messaging. Or hypnotherapy as well. But subliminal messaging is the one I mostly use. Where I'll just listen to something as I start to fall asleep. Continuously, it can be a positive noise or positive reinforcement of just the same sentences over and over again. Breathing's a big one. I would try holding the breath at the end of the drawback. That's something I would try to recommend firstly. Breathe in slightly as you draw back. Hold the breath. Throw. Breathe out. Pick it up. Little breath in. Hold it. Try to get a little hold as you're throwing the dart. Holding the breath can give you something else to think about. which is very useful when you're trying to battle subconscious negativity. A conscious thought always helps. Also, it can lower the heart rate, just a tiny bit. It can help you commit to that shot a little bit better. So that's something I would give a go. But handshaking is a nuisance. And some players, even like Martin Adams, as a professional, his hand still shook. He used 22 gram darts. It's not relevant to the handshaking. It's mindset. It really is mindset. You've got to learn to play regardless of shaking. Or try to stop it. Try holding your breath. Try some subliminal messaging. Try a bit of drink. I know people are going to probably hate me saying that, but at the end of the day, like I said, do what most professionals do. If you see a trend, do it. Most pros are drinking. Don't tell me they're not. I know they are, for a fact. Some are doing a lot worse than that. Don't do anything worse than that. That's disgusting. That's cheating. But drink is a legalized drug in our sport. Think of it that way. People took medication in bodybuilding that they're not allowed to take now when it was legal. And they were much bigger. Much easier. Until it gets banned, people are going to do it. And they won't ban it in the PDC because the standard would drop. Some players will do better. Majority of them will do worse. Totally different rankings you take the drink out of the game. Totally different. There are players that sell a lot of tickets that are not going to be on that stage anymore. Is it okay to move your hand sideways to your ear on the pull back? Yeah. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, like Humphreys or Littler do. Yeah, of course it is. Like I again covered it earlier. I mean, these questions all come back to the same thing. If you turn and turn, flick straight. Now, the exception with Humphreys. Humphreys is one of those players who's in the top 10% of players who is right eye dominant and the elbow kicks out to the left. Like I said, statistical probabilities, not set in stone. We've seen 2 world champions like that, Leighton Rees and Humphreys. And if you look at their throws in terms of alignment, they're very similar. Which is mad, you got the world champ from last year and the first ever world champion doing something very similar. Elbow out, draws to the right. But then he turns again. Both players used to do this. Now, when Leighton Rees used to do it, he used to unturn and there'd be a slight rotation, but the hand would be about by here. It was pretty straight. Humphreys actually rotates and spins the dart straight. So when I'm pretty sure he actually pushes the dart off the side of the index sometimes. It rolls out of the hand a little bit. And as you roll it out of the hand, it's the inertia that will pull it straight. Now, I have had students do this, and I've coached people on why it works. If they're really good at doing it, I'm not going to stop them doing it. I'm just going to explain why it's working and then why it's not. So they know how to fix it when it stops working, because all of a sudden the game just dissipates and they don't understand what they're doing different. Well, then they do. So they know how to fix it. Sometimes you don't want to reinvent something that's just naturally ingrained and working very well. Would I tell Humphreys to do something different? No, absolutely not. It'd be the stupidest thing you could do as a darts coach. Take the greatest player in the world and tell him to do something different. Why in the name, why would you do it? It's ridiculous. The concept of teaching a set routine in darts is just mental. You can coach principles, and principles equal technique. Style is different. Yeah, there's a reason his throw works. It's that rotation and the pulling the dart straight with inertia. So if you look at Humphreys' hand, it's not straight. I wouldn't train anyone to do that, though, if I could help it. If the player was already doing it and they were really, really good at it, then I would explain, okay, you need to rotate the hand the same every time. Make sure the grip feels the same. Then we're going to start the release as we rotate away from the dart. And let the dart pull straight with a big flight. Usually helps with that. And I guess Humphreys got a big flight and a big stem. A lot more to pull it straight. Then the inertia will pull it straight. But your hand should be doing this as you're going through then. It's much, much harder to learn for 99% of dart players. You're not going to see it very often. I would try not to do that. But yeah, unturn, flick straight. Why not? If in order to stop the turn, which some players have, Kyle Anderson did stop doing it, if you remember. And then when he was ill, he wasn't playing as much. He went back to doing it the natural way. But he did play more consistent when he didn't turn. But to stop the turn, try reducing the drawback as much as you can. But you might need to change the grip a little bit. Because what you'll find is there's players who have a very close grip. And then their joint can only come back so far. So the rest of the way, they have to turn. They can only draw back to here otherwise. If they want to come back any further, they have to turn. So it's a grip change. That's why sometimes it's easier to learn to unturn and flick straight rather than it is to change the grip. Changing the grip can be very, very difficult. Pick and choose your battles with it. I was wondering how important it is to lock the wrist, or is it personal preference? Yeah, it's important. It is important. You don't want to lock it as in really tight, but you want to get it back. So it's this is my natural weight. If I just let it fall back, so if I hit it, it's really soft. Then I want a slight muscle contraction past that, so it's ready to spring. If I was to hit it, it would still move a little bit. If it's completely tight, then it's going to move too slow. It's going to be decrepit. You're not going to accelerate. Again, it comes back to that principle. Of course, principle is not technique. You have to accelerate. But yeah, you want your wrist and your fingers back. The less you use the wrist, the more you're going to want to use the fingers. So if you don't like using the wrist, maybe try the index finger and thumb more. A little bit more like Mervyn King. Use your fingers. Use your fingers, then a bit of wrist. Push with the fingers. Lift the wrist and push the fingers. Less wrist, more fingers. Less fingers, more wrist. Try not to use the arm too much. The arm will put the timing out. Okay, been throwing since December. Throwing lighter when you go for doubles at the bottom of the board. Very, very common, and that's not just with new players. That's with some experienced players. It sometimes feels like you can't extend your arm because it's too close. It's because the timing of the throw needs to change. You need to tilt and swivel, like I've done a video on that as well. Watch my masterclass series. Tilt and swivel to get the line the same. But then you also need to be releasing slightly later at the bottom of the board, slightly earlier at the top. Now, that's too much to think about when you're throwing, yeah? But if you can try to get the same distance of time between hitting your handprint and the dart hitting the board, so handprint, listen to when it hits the board. Handprint, listen to when it hits the board. If you can get that same gap of time between your handprint and the dart hitting the board on the 20s as you can on the double three, you're naturally releasing a bit later. It will feel more like you're placing it in with the fingers. Keep your arm really relaxed still, but place it in with the fingers more. So you're keeping the contact a split second longer. Then it will feel like you're still attacking the target. You're not throwing tentative. Throwing tentative is a big mistake. It gets all lobby. We've all done it. I'm not saying I'm a saint, right? We've all done it, myself included. But you need to feel like you're going at it. Later release. Slightly later at the bottom of the board, slightly earlier at the top. So when you go at the top of the board, loosen the grip, flick it more. Get the wrist back a bit more, flick it more. When you go for the bottom, a little bit softer, place it in with the fingers more, rather than speeding up the flick so much. It's something you really have to practice, but practice switching. Tops, double three, tops, double three, tops, double three, and try to get the same feel for the shot. It will start to come. So your spatial awareness plays a very big part in that. Okay, this was a comment on the masterclass of the grip I did with Jules. Follow Daniel's direction here, and it now feels like I'm placing the darts into the board rather than launching them all. Yeah. Your fingers are working better, more clarity in the throw. You'll probably get a lot more accuracy on your doubles. It really will help. I found someone who holds the dart like I do. Thanks for the video. Oh, Steve Beaton. Yeah, holding it at the back. Yeah, that's cool. Just one question to this great masterpiece. Oh, I love a compliment. I've had a few by you and I haven't read them out, but that one I'm going to read just to make sure my head grows a little bit. Oh, I like that. Buttering me up, is. I like it. What am I talking about? Okay, this one isn't. This is quite hard to read because it's not spelled entirely correctly, so I'm going to get rid of something so I'm not embarrassed about. But yeah, so you want to be lifting the wrist on the point of release. You want the wrist to be nice and high. For most players, they're going to be doing something like this. Yeah? You look at Barney, you look at Taylor, you look at Ian Anderson. I think he might have changed it a little bit over recent years, but he used to always be like that. You know, when he was at his best, he used to lift quite quick. Start with the back of the hand and the thumb. Lift the base of the thumb. Lift the base of the thumb and the back of the hand. And you want all your other fingers to be so soft. All of these fingers should be really, really soft or not on the dart. One or the other. So they'll naturally move quick. They'll naturally move quick. Keep them very, very light. Don't tense them at all. Back and lift. And they should come off nice and quick. You should get much more clarity. Again, goes back to what that last person had commented on when they changed the grip. That's pretty much what you should be feeling. Darts lean to the right again. Yep, we've covered that. I bought Gabriel Clemens Gen 2 darts, but I think these don't seem to be good for me as a rear gripper. Before I played with the little Gen 1, do you have any alternatives? Because there is not enough information online. Right. Finding a dart with rear grip is a royal nuisance, alright? This is the only problem we get. It's because when you're manufacturing in mass, you can't really put a deep groove at the back because all of this is hollow due to the thread inside, and if you go too far, you're going to make it too weak. So manufacturers generally only like putting shallow grooves at the back. You need to look for something with wider grooves. If you look at this dart, this is just about grippy enough for me, but the gaps are quite wide. I would prefer them to be a bit wider, you know, but try to find something with wider grooves, a bigger gap, because you can't get a deeper groove. This is the only thing. Like with my darts that I've custom made, I've always had the like an Anderson gripper on the back. Manufacturers are not happy about doing it like that for me, you know, because like they have to work quite hard for their money with it. It takes a lot of clever design to do it. It might look basic, but I promise you, the amount of effort that goes into making sure those darts are strong enough is a lot. You know, it's a lot harder than it looks. And I will test them. I'll hit them with a hammer a few times, make sure they're strong before I start selling them, because I know it's a risk when they turn up. You know, I like my darts to be drilled out a lot at the back with plenty of grip at the rear. So that's the price I have to pay, you know. I'm going to have a little bit more wastage, and it's going to cost me more to make the darts. But yeah, try to find something with wider grooves. When in doubt, go for wider grooves. That is what I would say to you. Quick question. When I'm following through, my arm goes down instead of being straight. Could this affect my dart landing where I want it to? Not really. It is, for most players, a downwards movement with the forearm. Wrist and fingers come up, forearm comes down. You look at Lewis, he normally finishes there. Someone with a later release, like Rob Cross, is going to be there. But between here and here is normally normal. Anything more than this is too excessively late. If it's higher than that, nah, it should be fine. I wouldn't worry about it, honestly. It's just your natural dimensions. As long as your elbow's not dropping. If the elbow's dropping as you're going through, yes, then it can. Then it's going to be much harder to time the release, and you're more likely to decelerate, and you'll see the dart actually drop now and again. It'll look good for a split second and then just die before it gets to the board. It'll lose all its energy. Make sure you're not dropping the elbow. Other than that, I wouldn't worry about it. Can't get the technique down as a new player. Holding at the back of the barrel, trying to flick, but it doesn't land horizontally. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't do it as a new player either. Yeah, when I switched to my left hand, I was already averaging in the 70s for a good 6 months before I had the hand-eye coordination to manipulate the dart. It depends on your level of hand-eye coordination. If you can't do it now, go for a smaller flight, get the darts landing down to make the bed bigger that way. That's the way I did it, and I was averaging 70. I was doing okay. You know, I was doing okay. I started making my first final, throwing like that. Then, as it got a bit better after 6 months, I tried it again. I could just do it. It wasn't as if I kept trying every day till I could do it. It took a good fair bit of time to build that hand-eye coordination up, you know. So you think it took me 3 years to the board on my left, another year just to be able to throw a leg and play lower tier darts. I mean, 30 to 60 darts, you know, do out ridiculously bad. A year after that, I started getting 50 averages, and the odd 60. I started to play a bit better. Year after that, I started getting into the 70s more. The year after that, I broke into the 80s, and from there, I've played some great darts on and off. You know, when I was at my best, it was 80 on a bad day. You know, high 70s, low 80s on a bad day. 90 odd on a good. I still get the odd 10 plus average now, you know, but most of my averages at the minute, because I'm only playing twice a week, most of my averages are around 70 to 90. There's a big difference in consistency. It depends on how I feel on the day. When I'm fully warmed up and I've had a drink, I'm back in the 80s and the 90s. When I'm not so warmed up, or there's a lot of pressure and I'm not settled, then sort of 70 to 80. 70 to 80 or 75 probably is fair. But when I start playing more, I'll come back. Should do more of these kind of videos. Love watching you play. Thank you. To be fair, loads of people are watching me play. I'm very grateful for that, by the way. I don't know why people like watching me play. I mean, I'm not a professional. Maybe that's why. Maybe the standard's more relatable. It's good, yet something that can be achieved, because I have learned to play darts. So maybe it's that as well. I know I've got a nice throw, but I've worked on it for 20 years. You know, I started playing darts with my right hand when I was like 7 or 8 at a dartboard. My first final when I was 9. And I've never been gifted. It's always been technique driven. So I'm not gifted in terms of natural ability, but I do have skill. You can learn skill, and maybe that's why people like watching it, because it looks quite natural, because I've worked on it so much. It looks like I'm naturally gifted, but I'm not. I'm really not. I'm one of the least naturally gifted players I've ever seen, and that's after working with thousands of amateurs. I'm definitely in the top, like bottom 10% of players for natural ability. But yeah, thank you, man. That's really cool when people write things like that. I'm shocked when people watch it, let alone ask me to send it. I'll never quite know why people like watching me play darts. But it's really cool. It is cool. I'm flattered. Can you explain what you consider as a rhythm player? And what types of players are there? Do you have any prominent examples of them? Yes, that's easy. Okay. So a rhythm player is someone who takes a bit more time on the first dart, usually, and then just follows with the next two. So he might set up, throw. As soon as he gets one in, his arm just keeps moving. It's just one fluent motion. So that's going to be Van Gerwen, Michael Smith, Adrian Lewis, Luke Littler. They're like the holy grail of rhythm players. Anderson as well. You know, really naturally gifted players tend to be rhythm players, thinking about it. But then you have more deliberate players like Taylor. Set up, he'll aim, he'll come back, he'll follow. He'll try to think about how he feels and try to follow the dart, but he's a little bit more deliberate. He can play without rhythm. There's no real A, B, C. That's rhythm. Bump. Bump. Taylor could be A, B, C. And he'll pick the dart up, he'll take his time. A, B, C. He'll just do it at his own pace. More deliberate. So players that are more deliberate would be like Taylor, Dennis Priestley. In the more modern game, I'm trying to think who's the big names in the world at the minute. Let me get them up. Let's get the order of merit up. Krzysztof Ratajski comes to mind thinking about it. PDC order of merit. Okay. Rob Cross, I'd say he's more deliberate. I think it's fair to say he's more deliberate. Dolby, again, depends what Dolby we get. Sometimes he does play more deliberate when he's under a lot of pressure. When he's floating, he's just all rhythm, and he's excellent. You know, he's incredible to watch. Peter Wright is very much the same. He can be more deliberate at times. Yeah, it's different way of throwing. You know, again, most of the best players are rhythm players. But Taylor really wasn't, and he's the best ever. So, well, wherever works for you. I mean, you can't say Priestley did it wrong. You can't. He was amazing. So, yeah, that's a rhythm player, and that's a deliberate player. Been trying to flick the point. Do you have any advice to make them stand up more consistently? I wouldn't flick the point. Honestly, if you can't naturally flick the point, I'd hold the back of the dart and hold the shaft. Hold the shaft instead. Honestly, it's easier. It's like you've changed your darts. Yes, I did change them because my rear grippers were so popular, everyone kept buying them. They sold out within 2 days, and then I had people begging to buy them, so I sold them my own personal sets. I kept one set for myself in the end, because I felt really guilty that someone was playing so well with them, and then you'd had them nicked. So I thought I can always get more made at some point. So I give away all the sets till I had one left, and then I snapped the point. And they were already Swiss converted. So now they're double Swiss converted, and they're not going as well. Yeah, the points aren't staying in too good. It was a risk I took, trying to fix them myself. But yeah, so I'm using these at the minute. They're the closest thing in terms of weight and balance. They're 22 grams. They're very thin, 6 mil wide, so they're really, really thin. But because they're 55mm long, they still play very front heavy. And the actual length and thickness is a bit of a happy accident. They just started working. They played quite similar to them. So when I design the rear kicker 2s, I think they're going to be longer and thinner. And I think I'm going to be able to get them to kick even more. But yeah, that's that. Hey, I saw Ryan Searle slow-mo on the dart twirls. Are they meant to twirl? Or is this just a product of some player's release? I would imagine a perfect release wouldn't twirl. Yeah, so Ryan Searle again holds the dart kind of sideways. Now he unturns and flicks straight. If he doesn't unturn correctly, then he's going to spin the dart and it's going to twirl a little bit. They've just filmed the slow-mo on a bad dart, you know, or he's got away with it, but he hasn't thrown it the way he can. His darts do spin, but if the spin of a dart is tight like this, it's fine. If it's like this, no, that's just a mistake. Unfortunately, they filmed it on a mistake. I promise you not all of his darts are going like that, but they do spin quite a lot. Having a tight spin like that, it's fine. You know, it's to do with the way you grip the dart. The softer parts of tissue on your fingers will spin the dart more. So if you've got a grippy dart with a lot of soft tissue on it, you're more than likely going to spin the dart more. But as long as it's going straight, it really doesn't matter. You get people who are obsessed with getting the dart to not spin and just fly straight. And I'm like, some of the best players in the world spin the dart. Anderson spins it a lot. It's just so tight and straight that, you know, you can't say Anderson's wrong, can you? Again, it's fine. Spinning the dart's fine. Twirling the dart, he's just been unlucky. They filmed him on a bad throw. Question forever. When I watch Luke Littler, got to answer a Littler question. Yeah? He's the topic of today, of the year. I think he'll be of the decade, to be fair. When you watch Littler's throw from the side, you can see that his upper arm drops after the follow through. My arm looks the same, and I've always been trying to get rid of the movement because I don't see this drop in players like Smith. I really appreciate you take time to answer this. Okay, there isn't a question there directly, but I think I know what you mean. I'd really appreciate if you could take the time to answer this, and also getting a throw analysis soon. Can't wait for your feedback. Yeah, I mean, dropping the elbows you go through is not a good thing. If you're always dropping it after release consistently, it's not going to make a difference, but it's still a bad habit to have. Now, it's a bad habit to have because if you mistime the release or you drop it earlier, then it will impact your throw. But if it's always after release, you're going to be fine. So it's something that won't impact your throw, but it can be more risky. As soon as your throw changes a bit, it could have quite a serious impact. So in terms of training you for consistency, I wouldn't want you to do it. But at the same time, if it started affecting Littler's throw, then I would tell him, look, stop doing it. You need to start keeping the elbow still, start releasing earlier like you were so that it's not impacting. And I would train him to do both. But it would just be a case of this is what you did when it worked, when you were throwing really well, like he is today. This is what you're doing now. Let's start doing this again. You know, that's how you coach pros, mate. You can't coach them as in, all right, throw it my way. Yeah, of course you can't. And I coach all my students the same. All of them the same. I think it's really, really important. But I would try to get that out of your throw. I would focus on keeping it as still as you can in your elbow. Get the wrist release nice and soft. Flick through. If you're throwing too hard, you're more likely to drop. Now, this could also be a hyperextension problem. If you're hyperextending and then dropping, this will be a thing. That's one thing I have seen with Littler's throw over the last few weeks, all right? There was a couple of nights in the Premier League where he started forcing them a little bit. He had a couple of snatches. He threw a couple of off darts, and then this week we saw him throw an 81 average, which is not like him. I don't think it's going to be a problem that sticks around, personally. I think he'll just in his head, you know, if he can get himself nice and calm, he'll stop forcing them and he'll be fine. But, yeah, I have seen it impact his throw a little bit. So now you mentioned him dropping the elbow. It could have been that's causing him to snatch a little hyperextension, releasing a little bit firmer, a little bit later. And then as you hyperextend, your elbow will drop really fast because of the pressure on it. It might be a little bit of hyperextension. Make sure you're releasing nice and early. Loosen the grip, softer with the arm, flick more, nice and early with the wrist and the fingers. It should feel softer with the arm, faster with the fingers. You'll attack the target more, and it will be softer. Look at his triceps, muscles relaxing, jelly type substance, years of experience, years of practice. I don't even need to see the title of the video to know you're on about Van Gerwen, and you're spot on. That is exactly what I was trying to describe there. Keep your arm like jelly, get your wrist and fingers fast. You're seeing what I'm seeing, and you're seeing what I do, how I try to feel when I play darts. When I feel like that, I play better. Yeah, try to keep it, yeah, you're spot on. And trying to release it in a way that you do pushing down on the dart. I think we've pretty much covered it. Oh, this is on an alignment video though, so I'll take a bit of interest just in case. Okay, and try to release that though, you're pushing down with the index finger. It causes the dart to go sideways. So pulling the dart down to the right with the index finger. Okay, again, it goes back to the grip pressure as well. So if you're... Okay, if you can feel it fighting like this, that's what's going to happen, yeah? So if you start taking the finger off, it's going to do this. Or you're gripping tight. As you start going looser, it's going to do this. You need to get it sitting even so that it's going soft and it goes straight down. When you go softer, it goes straight down. This way, when you push down, it's that. You'll be fine. Goes back to the grip pressure. That's two things put together causing one problem. You see, so sometimes he may feel the problem is the dart is going sideways, but it's because he's pushing down on the dart. But it's not. It's going sideways because of the pressure on the dart. It's more noticeable when you push down on the dart. So the symptom is that the dart goes sideways. The cause is the pressure of the grip. Two different things. I'm really struggling with this. I can't stop rotating my wrist when I throw. It causes the darts to spray all over the place. Yeah, alignment's hard. Stop rotating. Okay. It could be something to do with your alignment. Again, go back to watch the video on alignment when it comes out. Make sure the elbow and biceps down the same path. I've already done some videos on alignment. Watch that one first. But keep the elbow and bicep down the line. Then focus on your hand shape. You probably need to lift your thumb more. If your hand keeps on turning like this, you're more susceptible to hitting ones. If you're turning in and hitting 20s, you'll probably miss a line to the 5. So that rather than turning in and hitting 5, you're having to turn to hit the 20. You're having to spin the dart in, so you're not throwing them straight. And yeah, that might work on your 20s when you time it to utter perfection. You'll go through a purple patch where they all go in, but try doing that consistently around the board. And try waking up the next day and doing it. Probably not going to happen. Unless you are God's gift to dart and your hand-eye coordination is off the charts, it's probably not going to happen. So make sure you're aligned to the 20s, elbow, shoulder and bicep down the line, same angle on your forearm, and then lift the thumb more. Lift the base of the thumb. Keep the same shape. It'll start to come. Any tips on how to keep the elbow straight when throwing? Always seems to be pulling to the left. Again, you're probably right-eye dominant, so your elbow wants to come in. Keep the elbow left a little bit. Stand to the right. Practice with the string in that way. Watch my next video. Lifting the thumb will help. But if I'm honest, there's no easy way around it. You have to just learn it. Once you've learned it, it's going to be so much easier. But learning it's not going to be easy. It's really not. If there was, I wouldn't have a job. It would be far too easy. Everyone would be good at it. It is really difficult. You know, that's the only answer I can give for you with that is just concentrate on trying to lift the thumb more. Concentrate on the shape of your hand. Lift the thumb. Look at your fingers, not the target. Another good tip, aim it, draw back, pause, look at your hand, and just actually watch your hand going straight. Decompartmentalize the dartboard. Stop thinking about what you're hitting. Concentrate on what you're doing. You know? Then, when you go to play games, stop thinking about what you're doing altogether and think about how it should feel. Think about how it felt when you had it right and try to play with it. It will get closer and closer, but don't underestimate what you can do in like 2 or 3 years. You know, it's easy to overestimate what you can do in a month. You know, bigger picture, it will start to come together, but your game might get worse at first. Now, with anything to do with darts coaching, any real darts coach, okay, really knows their stuff, is going to get you to do things that feel strange. It's going to happen, and it's going to get worse before it gets better quite often. You get some people who, again, are just God's gift to darts. They come in, you tell them to do something, and they can do it. That's the top 1% of players. A lot of players get worse before they get better. You know, just keep plodding with it. If you don't give up and you just keep going with it, I'm telling you, at some point you'll do it. It will crack. You will crack it. Get it as good as you can. Learn to play with it. 6 or 7 months later, try to push yourself even harder. You know, it's a case of building that hand-eye coordination as well. If I went to a younger version of myself, give him all the knowledge I've accumulated over the last 5 years of doing this 17 hours a day, there is no way I would make myself a better dart player overnight. It's just not going to happen. There were things that when I switched to my left, I knew, but I couldn't do. Knowing it and doing it is two different things. You look at some of the best coaches in other sports. Enzo Calzaghe, he's taught 3 world champions, 3 boxing world champions, one being his son, Joe Calzaghe, one of the greatest fighters of all time, who held the title in 2 different weight divisions. Very underestimated fighter. Now, his dad will tell you everything you need to know about boxing and more. Genius. Absolute genius. Only had 1 professional fight. Didn't go very well. He's too short. You know, I'm not going to be a pro with my left. It's unlikely. You know, I'm never going to give up trying. But it's unlikely I'll get to be a professional with my left hand. I think I've done really well just to be able to throw, to win anything with my left. My goal was to be able to hit the board consistently and play lower division darts. I achieved that. Then I started to become one of the better players in that division. Then I did Super League and County and started winning games. Then I started winning darts tournaments. I've gone far above what I thought I was capable of. And that's the truth. Honestly, most players underestimate what they can do in like 5 or 6 years. You know, you can probably get better than you ever thought possible if you keep chipping away at it. Saying that, you do get the odd person who's utterly delusional. You know, I had one person message me saying he was 83 or 73, sorry. And he's hit 3 180s. He's been playing 3 months and he wants to win the Worlds and the match play. Well, obviously, that's silly. You know, that's just silly. That's just not going to happen. You've once you hit 54, if you haven't done it by 54, you're probably not going to do it. You do get some people who are really fit, very cognitively advanced for their age, and they can still throw their best darts. But most players after like 54 tend to get worse gradually. You started way too late to be thinking about dreaming big that much. I mean, you got to travel the world, man. But a small amount of players. Honestly, most players can do a lot more than they think possible. If you're stuck at a 50, 60 average and you want to... There's nothing stopping you from getting into the 70s. I think most players could achieve a high 60s to mid 70 average. The majority of people on this earth. With the right training and a lot of time, a massive amount of dedication, that's achievable. And you'll get, you know, half of those players, maybe a little bit less, that will start getting into the 80s and 90s. To be fair, though, if I can get into the 80s and 90s, anyone can. You know, unless you're very, very challenged, like dyspraxic, you've got no hand-eye coordination at all. I would say I was in the bottom 10% of players for natural talent. That's where I'd put myself. And I did it. I've hit 9s. I've done good things on the dartboard. You know, I had a title defence on Friday, wrapped it up. I won every game 3-0. Best leg was 13, which was the leg to win it. The 15 in there as well. Worst leg was 23. Only once I went over 21 darts all night though. Most of my legs were 16 to like 18 darts, 19 darts. 16 to 9, quite a few 19s and 18s. And I'm only playing twice a week now. But I spent years learning to throw. Years. Hours and hours and hours. And I had to learn to take breaks, you know, which was even harder because I was addicted to darts. I had to learn to put them down and go again. It's difficult, but it is achievable. Honestly, there's one thing we're lucky of in darts is that most players can get better than they think possible. I remember when I was playing with my right arm, first couple of years playing, even my second, third year in the pub league, people would be like, it's okay, it's just not for you. Don't worry, just enjoy your game, you know. You know, not everyone can do it. Well, I've won that league now multiple times in singles and doubles. There's nobody in that league I haven't beaten. Nobody. Yeah, of course you can do it. Just that's what I wanted. You know, it was in my head. I was thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong. And when I started to play well with my right, and then I had the dartitis and the injury, everyone was like, oh, I'm definitely not going to do it, you know. But I'll never forget one of that. There was a group of people laughing at me, and I never forget it. Stuck with me. I thought, I'm going to beat you. I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to beat you. But that's in me. That's just my nature. I'm like a dog with a bone like that. I had to beat them. I had to. I had to go back and win that darts league. I did. It just took a long time. But yeah, I switched hands around 2013 for the first time. Yeah, we're now in 2025. I've won it the last 2 years and I'm undefeated this year, waiting for the final. So, yeah, 3 years in a row, effectively. But it did take a fair bit of time. It's not an easy thing to do. And that's something people underestimate. They'll hear 3 years just to hit the ball and they'll think, oh, that takes a lot of dedication. And then they go to try to do it themselves. And then 3 days later, they feel like it's taking ages. Honestly, man, that's what you've got to have in your head. You've got to have that consistent persistence all the time. You've got to want it. How much are you willing to go through? Is it worth it? You got to ask yourself these questions, otherwise you're wasting your time. For me, I knew I had to try. It wasn't even a question. Quitting darts was never a question. It was, okay, I've got to go and do it. But yeah, anyway, that's a massive Q&A, far longer than I was expecting, but it did take me ages to get around to it, so hopefully people watch it. I know this is a massively long video, so probably no one's going to watch it. They're going to click through, it's going to have a terrible wait time. So if you could do me a favour and just let this play in the background when you're not doing something, you'd actually do me a huge favour, because if people only watch like 20 minutes of this hour and 20-minute video, no one's going to get to see it, and I'm going to be asked the same questions again. Could have been a waste of time, but we'll see. Oh, man. I'll try and get the alignment video made as soon as I can. Like I said, I've luckily had a cancellation today. Someone hasn't turned up, so I've been able to do this. I'm coaching again now in 15 minutes. I'm doing a night shift coaching. I'm booked every weekend until I go to America, coaching out in Kansas. Then I'm coming back, and then should be coaching in the World Cup, which is going to be amazing. Maybe I'll get a chat to Darts Live, Phil Bars, which would be quite cool. He seems like a really nice guy. I've spoken to him a few times online, but I've never actually been interviewed by him, so I'll be going out and maybe doing that. It's going to be cool. We've got big things coming up. You know? It's mad that we've gone from a little YouTube channel, you know, just thinking straight to the point Darts would be a cool name for a YouTube channel, to being a business with multiple employees. Nuts. It's crazy. Yeah, thank you. Genuinely, it's mental. The more I think about it, it's I can't get my head around it. Yeah. So thank you. And I do want to get more stuff out there for free. I do want to give back more. I'm still sponsoring a lot of darts leagues, dart venues, and dart players, and I'm still doing my bit, guys. But I've been doing my bit more financially than time, because the time just hasn't been there. But I am trying, I promise. Alright. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching straight to the point. Please remember to like and leave a comment. And as always,
subscribe if you love the darts.
he's back again.